Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Maccabi Canada's conversation tonight, working towards Varsity, a conversation with Canada's elite varsity coaches. As always, I'll start off with a big thank you to the virtual JCC and our partner and producer, Jared. Fun fact about Jared, he counts President Obama as one of his followers on Twitter. So joining us tonight are three incredible coaches: Ilya Orlov, the men's soccer head coach for the University of Toronto and a Maccabi Games alumni from 2013. Madhav Trivedi, the men's basketball assistant coach at the University of Toronto. And last but not least, Dore, the former men's basketball head coach at Concordia University. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. So first off, how's everyone doing during this pandemic? It's a tough time, especially at the collegiate level. So how are you guys doing?
Well, I'm retired, so I'm doing fine. Just trying to hang in there, do what we can. And it's all about attitude this time. Get up every day and have a good day.
And Madhav, Ilya, how are things? I know there's no one on campus now, but how are things in your end at University of Toronto?
Yeah, they're on our end. We're still pretty active with our athletes and keeping on top of them in terms of how they're doing emotionally, mentally, in school, and at the same time trying to do as much as we can to make sure that they don't lose much of their training during this time, because we don't get as much time together or any time together on the court. So, but the communication never stops. Even without the pandemic, you're always communicating with your athletes consistently. So that's been pretty consistent. It's just the face-to-face is a little harder.
Yeah, same as Madhav said. We're still keeping in touch with our athletes. Just like most teams, they're doing online training, just keeping fit, and we're ready. We're trying to keep the guys as ready as possible for when or if we do restart. Then they're ready to go. But yeah, just keeping in touch with everybody, making sure they're doing well physically and like Madhav said, mentally. And yeah, we're just finishing off our recruiting for next season, and yeah, preparing, like I said, for if and when we start.
Awesome. We'll get into recruiting in a bit, but I'll begin now with John. So John, I'm a proud Stinger alumni, and I watched you pace up and down the court so many times when I was in college there. So you first came to Canada in 1971, and you've been a Stinger ever since. And upon retirement, you were given one of the greatest honors that any coach can receive. The court is now named John Dore Court. So looking back on your career, what did that honor mean to you?
Well, a very humbling experience to see people walk over your name every day. And it's, I was honored and humbled by it. It's, I put a lot of time, effort into the program, but I also got a lot out of the program. It helped me to grow personally over the years. And most importantly, I think all the people that I've met that have come through the program through the years and have gone on to successful careers and whatever endeavors they've chosen, that makes it all worthwhile for me.
That's awesome. And so you mentioned you met a lot of interesting people over the years. For the 2013 Maccabi Games, you were working with the Knicks and you recruited Amare Stoudemire to coach alongside you. What was that like?
Well, Amare's a great guy. I didn't realize how popular he was at the time. I know he'd be the highest paid assistant coach in the world, because at that time he was making about $25 million a year with the Knicks. But when I asked him if he'd like to come, funny story, he just played a playoff game in Miami, and he was a little upset after the game. He put his hand through a fire extinguisher, the glass of a fire extinguisher, and severed a tendon. So the next day I'm in New York at the practice facility, and we're talking about him coming to Israel for the Maccabi Games. And I'm saying, oh no, he's calling a press conference at 1. Anyways, it turned out he was in the training room most of the time. And I had a great opportunity to talk one-on-one with him for an hour or so. And he really wanted to come. He felt a connection to Israel, and he wanted to come and do it. And, it was probably the highlight of the games for a lot of people. In the first day alone, he probably took 10,000 pictures. for the opening ceremonies there. He, because of him, we were invited to Shimon Peres's birthday party. We had a private tour of the presidential palace or whatever it was called, and it was terrific. And he also brought a basketball team over to Jerusalem at that time with the group, and his career is finishing over in Israel these days.
Awesome. So we'll switch gears now. We'll go off the court and onto the pitch. Ilya, you're the head coach of U of T, but you also have international experience in Europe. So compare and contrast the style of play for us, and what are the main differences between our game and their game?
Yeah, so I've been to Europe numerous times. I've been to Holland with Feyenoord, which is one of the biggest and best academies in the world. I've been to Germany. I worked in Germany. I've been to Belgium, Scotland, England. So I've seen quite a different perspective in terms of European soccer. To be honest, the game is the game. I mean, we play 11 against 11. The field size is the same. So in terms of what the game is, it's the same. The differences are one is the financial aspect. They're able to recruit very good young players from around the world at a very young age. Now in kind of in world soccer, it's 16. So a lot of the academies have. In the academy that I was at in Berlin, Union Berlin, they had players from abroad at the age of 16. Something that doesn't really happen in Canada. So just being able to bring in international talent at a young age is one difference. The next one is the academies at the young age in Europe produce obviously very good players, something that is slowly starting in Canada with the Montreal Impact, with Toronto FC in the MLS, Vancouver Whitecaps. But in terms of on the field, obviously the players, the technical ability of the players, the game understanding is higher just because the academies, they're competing with the best players against the best players from a very young age, week in and week out, which is something that hasn't been happening here. And that also then translates into the senior game. Obviously, if you have better training at a young age, I mean, whether it's soccer, basketball, there's no secret. The better the training, the more competitive at a young age, the better it is at the senior level. So in terms of just the game speed, the technical ability, the game understanding is better at the senior level. But slowly, very slowly, Canada is catching up now with the Canadian Professional League starting last year. So slowly we are catching up to what it is like in Europe. It might take years. How many years I can't say, but slowly we will. I think eventually we will get to maybe not the same level, but close to the level that we have, that it is in Europe.
So you mentioned, of course, the training and the development starts at an early age. So our national team, I believe we're now ranked 73rd in the world. The highest we've ever been was 40 back in 96. Only one World Cup appearance in 1986. Would you say that's the reason, the fundamental development is why we struggle as a country to break through?
Well, yeah. So again, it starts from the youth development at the young age. Right, we've completely revamped and changed our coach education for the youngest players, and I mean the youngest players at 8 years old. There's more emphasis on the technical ability of the players. We've taken away scores and standings. It's more about development now at the younger ages, and that will translate into better senior players, and then a better national team. We have a new coach that just came in, John Herdman, who I feel is a very good coach. And you can slowly see better players being produced in our country. We have the best left defender in the world right now, Alphonso Davies, who plays for Bayern Munich. So that's something Canada would probably never be able to say. So slowly it's developing, and at the international level, like you said, we've advanced slowly, and I think over the next let's say decade, with the World Cup coming here in 2026, which means we will be probably hosting games. It's going to inspire the young generation of both players and coaches, and more money is being invested. Like I said, we have the Canadian Premier League, which started last year, and with all of these investments, with all these new developments, the game there's no way for it to go except forward.
Awesome. And it seems like they still have a lot of catching up to do to our women. They've won 2 Olympic medals. They're ranked 8th in the world now. So how do you credit the success on the women's side of the game?
Well, first, we have to kind of step back, let's say a decade or a couple of decades. Women's soccer wasn't that popular around the world. And in Canada and in North America, it was already emerging. So we had a little bit of a head start on the other countries. But now you see countries like France, Japan, Holland, countries that are usually very strong at the national team, at the men's national team level, have now implemented their development in the girls' side as well. So now they've improved drastically, and Canada's kind of fallen back the last kind of World Cup cycles, the last couple of World Cup cycles. But again, we had a head start. Now it's keeping the momentum and again following up on the development. But again, I think both on the men's and women's side, I know they're planning to launch a women's professional league, hopefully in the next maybe 5-6 years. But like I said, I think it was due to our head start in terms of a lot of girls playing soccer at a young age. Whereas now kind of the rest of the world is catching up and half caught up. And now it's our job to kind of catch up to them now and then keep going. But our women's team is a very good national team, like you said, top 10 in the world regularly.
Awesome. So now let's jump back to the hard court and let's speak to the next John Dore, Madhav. You've climbed the ranks in Canadian coaching. You've amassed some awesome experience, the 2010 FIBA World Championships, 2011 FIBA Americas, 2 Maccabea Games, 2013, 2017, and you're currently a special assistant for the U20 Israeli national team. So almost the same question I had for Ilya. So much international experience. What lessons do you bring back home to your team at University of Toronto?
Yeah, when I first started off with in 2010 with the Canadian national team, we weren't as exposed as much to the other countries in the age group in terms of how good and how talented the other countries were. We still saw a lot of international talent in the NBA, and the one thing that you saw from the NBA and then in a lot of these countries overseas that were playing at such a high level, like the World Championships, was there's a very, very solid fundamental and skill base that these players have, and our players definitely have that too. But when you look at our talent level, we were able to get by with our raw athleticism and our ability to play up and down the floor a lot more. And then when you look at a lot of the European countries, they spent a lot more time on their fundamentals of the game, dribbling, passing, shooting, but a lot on their decision making, which started at a super young age for a lot of those countries and kids.
So you mentioned how the international game that the players are developing as well. There's been a renaissance in Canadian basketball recently. Lots of NBA players, lots of prospects playing at the collegiate level in the States as well as the collegiate level in Canada. What do you believe led to that?
Yeah, I think the Toronto Raptors and their success and just their hype that they've created in all of Canada definitely sparked interest for a lot of young players to want to play the game of basketball. And then I think our Federation in Canada Basketball did a really good job of providing opportunities for the younger athletes to play on national teams, under 16, under 17, junior national teams, university games, and then there's other opportunities like in what we're speaking with right now with the Maccabea Games. It's another platform for athletes to develop and grow and play in international competitions. So the coaching got a lot better, especially at the youth level. Something that really sparked that was the Canada Basketball Junior Academy, where they take the top grade 7s and grade 8s in Ontario or in Canada, and they every weekend of the month during the year they train, right? Like an academy in Europe, and they're taught the fundamentals at a young age, the decision making at a young age. But then I think our coaching development that the Canada Basketball has done, the NCCP has done, has allowed coaches to really get better. So now all these coaches are touching all these young kids, and they're getting better with their shooting, their dribbling, their passing. So I think the opportunity for that has been tremendous over the years.
Awesome. Speaking of Canada basketball, on June 16th, we're actually bringing in Glenn Grunwald and Rowan Barrett. So that'll be an interesting conversation as well. Hopefully everyone will tune into that. So I'll open up the floor to all three of you. You've been college coaches, some retired, but over 40 years. And Madhav and Ilya, you're still well in the game. What do you look for in a recruit?
I can start off with that. At the end, it's a variety of factors. The one thing at the University of Toronto, and as Madhav will probably know and speak to as well, is we're a very academic school. So obviously the grades, the first conversation that I have with any student athlete is once we kind of like what we see on the field is what are their marks like. That's the first thing that we ask if they're even eligible to qualify with for the program that they want to study. If that is fine, then obviously the on-field part is it's very basic. It's the decision making on the field. Then that leads to the technical ability, and then obviously the physical qualities, which are all linked together. So even though I'm describing them separately, they're all linked together. And then we see the personality. Will this person or this young student athlete be a good fit for the University of Toronto? Can they handle downtown life? Can they handle training every single day? Even though our season is very short, we train together for 10 and a half months a year. Can they play at the high level and study at a high level? So it's a combination of factors, but obviously play on the field, and then the school, the academic part of it are the two major factors.
John, you can weigh in from a Montreal perspective.
Well, I think first of all they have to qualify academically. It's first and foremost. After that, I think you want people with good character. Good things happen to good people. You want people who are going to fit in. And as a coach, you want to surround yourself with the best people you can. Makes your job easier. It makes it a lot more fun for the members of the team. Of course, they have to have a great skill set in that and be willing to compete. And I always try to look for people who are gym rats, who like to be in the gym by themselves, wanted to improve all the time, and that. And then again, who are selfless, who would help to make other people better during this time as well, not just themselves. So, and you all have to be on the same page. You're striving for excellence. It starts at the top with the AD and sports information and sports science and the coaches and the players. And you're all striving for the same goal. If you're not on the same page, it's not going to happen.
So you bring up good character, and I know you have a very small sample size when you see these recruits. Has it ever happened, or can you share stories when it happened that you've taken a shot on a player and you've missed, and who wasn't the same kid you interviewed, same family you came from, you just were flat out wrong?
Yeah, look, I think that happens more often than not. We had a great kid who's a rookie of the year in the conference, all rookie team, all Canadian. And then he got sidetracked in life, and he wound up leaving school after the second year. And, and he was a bright student too. He was a good student. But it just didn't work out for him. Whatever, character is revealed when there's adversity. And sometimes you have to go through it to take the next step. So it's, I've been wrong a number of times. I've cut kids with guys on the team who come back to me and said, "Hey, coach, you've made a mistake." How so? They explained to me this. Okay, maybe I made a mistake. We bring the guy back. He was a great, great teammate for these guys. Didn't play much, but he pushed them in the weight room, pushed them. They always knew he had their back, and it was a tremendous asset to the team. So coaches make mistakes. And we have to admit it when we do.
Madhav, Ilya, any mistakes you guys want to admit with us?
You know what? They say in every recruiting class, if one player turns out to work out, you've done a good job. And I think, like Coach Dore said, there's so many variables and factors that affect student athletes on and off the court, where who they are, their first year changes from their second year, third year, fourth year, whether it's injuries, personal issues, school. So, as our jobs as coaches, you're wearing so many different hats, and you have to keep a pulse on all this stuff that's happening to make sure that you're doing the best you can to help the student athlete as long as they're willing to be helped and they show that they want to be helped. And then you just have to trust the people around you, like Coach Dore said, your players, your staff, and maybe you've made mistakes, but there's a lot of times we've taken players where we've said they're better than their problems that they come in with. And then once they've been on their team, their problems have been a lot bigger, where they're not going to class. They're going against, what we've created as a team culture in terms of being on time, competing all the time, where it just ends up becoming detrimental, and you've had to let a certain player go. So, just have to weigh in and see what what you really value on your team.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. With our team, we have a roster of 24 players. This year, at the University of Toronto, we have a large graduating class, so we're bringing in probably 10 to 11 new recruits. And for sure, I know for sure right now, not everyone's going to work out, and we will make mistakes. So obviously, you're trying to check all the boxes, try to predict who's going to work out, but we know there's going to be mistakes. And as coaches, we have to admit when we make mistakes, even in games. I mean, there's been moments where, last year I remember we had a tough game against one of the best teams, and I think I got the tactics wrong. And you just got to stand up in front of the team and just put your hand up and say, listen, today we got the tactics wrong, and that allows freedom for your players to be comfortable that they're allowed to make mistakes as long as they learn from them. So it's a team culture. But yeah, in terms of recruiting, we do make mistakes. We had one player, because I was an assistant coach for 5 seasons before I became the head coach. I remember we had one player who he was on the brink of being released, just not showing up to class once in a while, at training, not working as hard as we expected him. But slowly we kind of worked with him, and by year 5, he was a OUA All-Star, and I would guess probably the best player in his position in the country. And he was on the brink of maybe getting cut in the second year. So it's you never know. You just try to do your homework to make sure that you get the best possible chance to recruit a player who you think is going to succeed.
Awesome. So before I get to Erica's question that popped up, take us through the recruiting cycle. How is the process? How does it happen? Because I'm thinking a lot of people in the room here have never been recruited to play college sports.
You're doing it all the time. As college coaches, you're recruiting all the time, and you're recruiting for graduate class that's coming in 2 years later, 3 years later. You're always keeping an eye out for the student athletes that fit the academic profile of your school, and then from there you start looking through the individual characteristics that coaches value. For us, it's guys that love basketball, that have a passion for basketball, and that have an extremely high compete level. So, and we're following high school seasons, which start in October, November. We're following AAU season, which usually starts around March and goes all throughout the summer. Sometimes some coaches even, will pop up into, there's a lot of trainers now in basketball where they'll have group training sessions. Sometimes coaches will pop up to a group training session to see, hey, I want to see someone's work ethic when it's the lights aren't on. How are they working off the court? And there's a lot of stuff where, we're on our phones all the time. So with social media, Twitter, Instagram, as you're scrolling, recruits are popping up, and you're making mental note all the time of certain things, that you're looking for that might attract you to a recruit, that might turn you off from a recruit. That's from a basketball standpoint.
Have you ever seen a player via social media and said, I got to have this guy?
Not just off of social media. It's happened though, because a lot of kids will post their highlight videos and so on and so forth. So you'll be able to see if they post a highlight of themselves, like, hey, you know what, I need to go check this guy out immediately. And if you've been coaching for a long enough time, sometimes you can tell whether you need to or not. We've made that mistake where we saw a video once. It was pretty funny where it wasn't at U of T, it was at a previous school, where we started the highlight reel of a player, and within 5 seconds he throws down 2 dunks, and one coach goes, we've never had that at our program. We need to get him into our school. And he ended up coming to our school, but he wasn't a good fit. Great kid, but just different reasons. So that's happened, and it's happened. We've made a mistake that way, but we've also it's also worked out positively for us as well. But you need to do more research if you want to get it as right as possible.
So, John,
Yeah,
over
Daniel,
the course,
I think the coaches over the years get a lot of inquiries about student athletes who want to come to your school, and during the course of a year, it could be hundreds. And you have to follow up on all of them, quickly check them out, get rid of the ones you're not going to pursue, and then move on. We had a great example. We had a kid who was originally from France, Muddy might remember this guy, Benjamin Somante. He was playing he was on the French junior national team with Tony Parker. Went to University of South Alabama. Was not a great fit for him. He wanted to go to another school. He contacted a couple of Canadian schools, Concordia being one of them. We jumped on it right away. He was a great player for us. He's an even better person, and he was a terrific student. Perhaps the only student athlete ever to be academic All-American and academic All-Canadian. And he went to McGill Law School after he graduated from Concordia, and he worked in the law field. But, you have to follow up on all this because you don't know where the next player is coming from. So it takes time, effort, energy, and then you're out watching games all the time and talking to coaches and, trying to figure if this athlete is a good fit, if he plays the type of game that you want to play. And different coaches play, some coaches like more of a half-court game. Some coaches like to run up and down. Some like to press. So the athlete has to fit into the system that you have, and you're not going to fit the athlete in. If he's a great athlete or a great role player, but you're looking for athletic guys to go up and down, you're not going to get him in there. So you got to make sure you know what you're going after, what you're looking for, and most importantly, he's a good person.
So, John, to follow up on that, you've been in the game, or you were in the game for over 40 years. Madhav mentioned how now he sees athletes on social media, he sees their highlight reels. How has this changed? How has the recruiting process changed throughout your career? And was it hard to adapt?
Well, I don't know if I ever really adapted. I'm a dinosaur. I was never great on social media and that. But, the older you get, the more connections you have, which makes it a lot easier for you to recruit and to recruit good people. I think the profession of coaching has changed over the years. In Canada, it's grown. There are more full-time coaches in the country than there ever were before in all sports. And it's also evolved where the coaches are now in charge of everything in their programs. We used to have, when I started, I had a secretary. Then they give you a computer and you have to do everything yourself. You write your own recruiting letters. You answer all your emails. Whatever it is you do, you have to fundraise. You have to plan your trips. You have to negotiate your trips. It just goes on and on. You're a psychologist. You have to bring the kids to the doctors if they need it. It's, but I think whatever school somebody is looking at, they should talk to the coach and then ask the athletic director, do you want excellence here at this school? Are you going to allow us? They want excellence in the business program or the biology program. Do we want excellence on the basketball court or the soccer pitch? Are we on the same page here? Are we going to work together? Sports information, sports science, the administration to get us going in the right direction.
So, Ilya, I want you to sell University of Toronto to me. I'm your recruit. Why should I come to your school?
Well, first, statistically, we are the number one education in the country. We're 19th, I think, this year, or 20th in the world. We have a top 10 soccer program in the country. Our players also, so alongside of coaching the university team, I also coach a team that plays in the semi-pro league. It's called League One Ontario, which is kind of the highest level right underneath the pro level. So our top 10, 12 guys play with us, with me as well. So these guys are playing, like I said, we have our own dome. So we start training first week of January, right after the break. And then we'll train throughout the whole winter, the spring, and play friendlies in the dome, which I think no other school in Ontario or maybe even in Canada has their own dome right on campus. So we get to train. We don't train in gyms like a basketball gym. We train on turf. The guys play in the summer in the semi-pro kind of league, and then they transition into the university season. So these guys are playing 35 to 40 games a year, exactly what is needed for their development, the same way it's done in Europe. And then we transitioned to the university season with our top kind of 10, 12 guys, in addition to the rest of the players. And then we're located downtown Toronto, in the biggest city in the country, right in the heart of the financial district. If you have aspirations to work in the medical field, right where the hospitals are, kind of where all the action is in Toronto. So school we take care of. Soccer, like I said, top 10 program in the country, and right in the heart of Toronto. And we have a great administration. We were supported very well by our athletic director, by our manager, our program managers. We have a full-time strength and conditioning program that the players use. We have doctors, physiotherapists, just kind of all we tick. I feel like for a student athlete, and again, it's a biased opinion, but I think we tick all the boxes if you want to succeed both on the field and in life.
It's a pretty good pitch, I got to say.
We don't miss out on too many.
You know what I'm saying? Concordia has a dome.
It is the Stinger Dome. I was going to correct him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Couldn't let him get away with it.
Shout out to John and Loyola campus. The Stinger Dome goes up in the fall and it's up there all winter. So there is a turf, and the students can train inside as well.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we're talking a lot about, the aspects of Canadian colleges. And I mean, I'm sold on Canadian university sports, but a lot of our athletes are buying into the glitz and glamour of the US. So first, how much of a competition are these US schools to these elite athletes, and how do you deal with that?
I can start out on the soccer. I can start out on the soccer side.
Sure.
Yeah. So on the soccer side, over, let's say, the last 2-3 decades, the NCAA has been a huge draw for our top players. Why? They have the MLS, the Major League Soccer, and the Major League Soccer does a draft just like the NBA, the NHL. They do a draft. They do a combine in December. But now that's shifted as a result of the MLS academies must have their own. The MLS clubs must have an academy. So from the age of kind of 12 to 23, they have their own academy. So now they're less reliant, or some clubs are completely non-reliant on NCAA players for various reasons, because they only play 3 months a year. They don't feel the development is as good, various reasons. So they stick to their academy players, which means less NCAA players are getting a chance at the MLS level. And the combine has completely gone. So there is no more MLS combine for that reason. Whereas in Canada now, they started the Canadian Premier League. It's a fully professional league. They had 7 teams last year. This year's going to be 8, and it's growing and growing and growing. There's a partnership between the Canadian Premier League and U Sports. So players can get drafted in. So there's a U Sports draft at the end of the year. Players can get drafted into the Canadian Premier League, but they sign what's called a developmental contract. So they can play until August, the middle of August or August 1st. And if the club does not pick up the option to sign them for the rest of the season, they're allowed to return back to school and play U Sports. So now the top players are thinking, okay, we can get an education in Canada. It's much cheaper if I don't get a full scholarship, which in most cases doesn't happen. And we can stay in Canada, play at a very good level now, and have a chance to play the professional game. So the draw of going to the NCAA, again, I'm not talking for everyone, but a large portion of players who would previously be going down to the States are no longer going down to the States. They are staying in Canada. And we just had a player who we just recruited. He had an offer from Wake Forest, which is a top 3-4 school in NCAA, but he's decided to stay in Canada and he will be going to the University of Toronto for that reason. So Forge in Hamilton has a team in the Canadian Premier League, and they've guaranteed that he can train with them and at the same time be part of the University of Toronto. So for him, it's a win-win. So he's going to be staying here, and a lot of the players are making those decisions now.
I'll say his decision was a credit to your recruiting pitch, Ilya.
Maybe.
So Madhav and John, there, I believe, 350 or maybe even more D1 NCAA teams. March Madness is the preeminent tournament in North American sports. So how do we keep our talent in Canada?
Go ahead, Marty. You're more current than I am.
Well, as coaches, I think it's important to understand in basketball, every kid grows up dreaming to play in the NCAA. in March Madness, and then eventually making it to the pros. So for us to disregard that, especially when a lot of us grew up like that too, I guess it is not fair, and it's important to keep in mind. And a lot of times when a kid gets an offer, it's a full ride, and there's very few, if any, like a percentage of super small that have turned down a Division I offer to play U Sports. Now, where it's really helping us is that we have a rule where any kid who transfers back from the NCAA, they can come back and play right away in U Sports, which is very important because in the NCAA, if you transfer, you have to sit out. I think that rule might have changed now, so that's important to keep in mind. But it all comes down to what the student athletes' goals and dreams are, right, and what their families' goals and dreams are, right. Some student athletes, even if they stay in Canada and pay tuition, it's they can't afford it. So if they do have a Division I scholarship, I think it's important for them to explore that. Now, if finances aren't an issue, because we do offer scholarship money, all over Canada, it's different based on the provinces. Now you really got to look at it. You got to look at your quality of education. You got to look at your ability to play, develop, and grow, which our rules in U Sports allow us to spend more time with our student athletes and have more hands-on practice time with our student athletes than they do in the States, which I think is very valuable from a player development standpoint. And then, knowing like what your chances are, right? A lot of kids want to play pro, and to play pro, you got to play minutes, wherever you are. And just like the same way college coaches will find scouts, pro scouts will find college players. So, if you develop the reps to be a good pro player, which U Sports develops a lot of European players that are having really good careers, then I think you really got to take a look at it. And I think that's a big draw in terms of keeping our student athletes in Canada.
John, your thoughts?
I think that first and foremost, there's a lot of great coaches in Canada, which we often overlook because you hear about all the guys in the States. The coaching in Canada is second to none. So I think the kids have to look at that and have to find somebody they're going to be comfortable with for the 4 or 5 years they're going to play. In Canada, I don't think we can compete with the big schools like the Power 5 Conference or the Big East in basketball. They have, their budget for basketball is $10 to $14 million a year just for a men's basketball program. But we're not at that level. In the last few years, I've had the opportunity, since I retired, to travel around to different universities, primarily in the States, and observe. University of West Virginia, their practice facility, they want the best one. So they go out and they raise $26 million, no public funds, and they build a tremendous practice facility. Better than the Raptors had, better than the Knicks had, tremendous. We can't compete with that. But if a kid wants a good education and wants to choose the program that he wants to be in and the courses that he wants to take, it's probably better off in Canada. And a lot of the kids, there's NCAA Division I and March Madness, and we see it on TV. But as you alluded to before, there's 350-something Division I schools. We don't see the Northeast Conference or the MAC Conference or these smaller conferences where their average fans per game could be 300, 400, 500 people. So we see the Kentuckys and the Notre Dames and the big schools, getting 20,000 out. That's not happening all over the place. And we've had over the years guys who have gone on to turn down scholarships to come to Concordia to play. And they wound up playing professionally in Europe. It was not a problem. They've had long careers. One of our guys, actually, is one in Spain and one in Switzerland right now, coaching in Switzerland, after his playing career is over. So, wherever you go, and you have to find a good fit. We're not competing with the big schools. All the other schools we can compete with. And the basketball here is as good as it is down there, excepting the top maybe 25 to 30. Carleton has proved that time and again. Various other schools have beaten At Concordia, we beat Illinois one year, Big Ten school. You know, I mean, at Concordia, we played the Arizona at Arizona and the ACC at Duke, and Connecticut at Connecticut when Duke and Connecticut were 1 and 2 in the country. That's tough for us to compete at that level, but the level below that, that's where we are.
So as coaches, this applies to all three of you. How do you compete with the myth that the American schools could be, because of their grandeur, the money that they have, are better than Canadian schools, and the athletes are better, the quality of basketball is better?
From a soccer perspective, like I said, the landscape is really changing. We have something we haven't had really before. The last kind of 10 years it came in where coaches are full-time. The staff are full-time. The facilities at the University of Toronto, we have a 5,000 seat stadium with, like I said, a world-class gym. So I think the myth on the soccer side is kind of going away, that Canadian schools can't match American schools. I mean, we play friendlies against American schools, and even when I was a player when I played at York University, we played American schools, and we would compete equally with them. We would beat a lot of the top schools. So slowly, it's changing. And yeah, I mean, on the soccer side, I'm sure on the basketball side, it's probably a little bit different because of the financial aspect. But on the soccer side, we're slowly changing with good coaching, facilities, competition. It's slowly shifting back to the more 50-50 with Canadians and NCAA.
Madhav? Yeah, for basketball, like, there's a lot of American schools come up in August, early September, and play friendlies with the Canadian schools, and you know, a lot of the Canadian schools are beating these American schools, year in, year out, right? So one of the ways to do that is get onto the floor and let's play them, right? And the best school in our country, their record against Division I schools is like 70% winning record, right? So that definitely helps. And then if you look at the skill set and style of play, right, the NCAA, they play 30-second shot clock. We play 24 seconds. So our style naturally is a little bit more up tempo. It's a higher possession game. So when those schools do come down and they play us, they struggle with having to make that many decisions as players. Whereas with the other rules, it's a lot of coach led and coach determined. So you see our athletes having more ability and more time to make decisions for themselves, as opposed to coach always micromanaging the game. And it's very evident when you switch the rules around and you're competing.
Hey, Daniel, if I can just add one more thing here, is we do not promote ourselves well in Canada. I mean, youth sports gets less coverage than they ever have before. We're not saying we have this great product, here it is, come and see it. When the States, they are promoting, self-promoting all the time. It doesn't matter where you are, whether it's high school or college or junior college, they're out there promoting and promoting. Here we don't do that. A lot of schools are not even doing it on social media, or it costs nothing. But the newspapers used to cover it. The local television stations used to do it. There used to be a game of the week in Ontario on TV in basketball every week. That's not happening anymore. So I think we have to take pride in the product that we have and do a better job of promoting it.
John, you have more championship rings and fingers and toes, so you can interrupt whenever you want. No worries. So a question for all of you. Let's go back to our athletes at the high school level. What advice would you give them looking forward towards a college career? How can they make that dream happen?
For us, it's both, like we said at the start. It's the academic side, obviously doing well in school, making sure you have an idea. I mean, in high school, it's very difficult sometimes to kind of already have a plan of what you want to do even after university, but have an idea of what you want to study, and make sure you achieve the the prerequisite marks and the prerequisite courses to first even get into the program. And then training. Right now, soccer in Canada, like I said, it's changed. 10, 15, 20 years ago, the season starts, preseason starts in August and the season ends in November. So 2.5 months a year, you're playing soccer. The rest of the time, the coaches kind of, again, they were not full-time, so sometimes they might not even know what you're doing. Whereas now it's a 10.5 month a year program. We break, our season finishes in the middle of November. We break for 2 weeks. Then, for 2 weeks in November, then for the month of December, and then first week of January, we're back. It's a massive commitment. Our guys, like I said, our guys throughout the year will train 4 or 5 times a week, on top of strength and conditioning, plus 1 or 2 matches a week. They have to really take care of their bodies to make sure that, and the way we play at the University of Toronto, we play a very fast transition game, where it's a lot of up and down, kind of up and down style, where we focus on transition, which means you have to be doing a lot of high intensity sprinting, and you have to prepare yourself for that. So decision making at very high speeds, obviously the technical execution to execute those decision making, decision making, and the physical side, and then also prepare yourself to, as Coach Dore said, you have to prepare yourself, just mentally, in terms of being coachable. Making sure that you can take both criticism and take advice, and then just be a team player. Make sure that you're always contributing to the team, and a lot of times you're not going to be able to play. You're not going to be playing a lot of minutes, maybe in your first or second year. But how do you develop and how do you contribute? And that starts from the high school age.
Madhav?
Yeah, work on your game. Work on your craft, and really work on it. Really focus in on the skills and fundamentals that you need as a player to play at the next level. A lot of that can happen from getting out and watching a U of T soccer game, a Concordia basketball game, a U of T basketball game, and see the product live where you want to play. I think that's very important, right? And pick a guy, like, hey, you know what? Or a girl, hey, that could be me, right? That my size, my speed. Okay, what do they do, right? And see how you match up, and from there you'll know what you need to work on, and seek out the help if you don't know something. There's coaches, there's strength and conditioning coaches, there's nutritionists, right? I think if you can do that as a young athlete, it's going to set you up for when you do play at the next level. But I think something that's forgotten a lot now is, as athletes, we don't, even at our level, right? Like, everything has to be told, hey, do this, hey, do that, hey, try this, hey, try that. Like, maybe sit back and see if you can come up with ideas yourself. Like, hey, I'm going to work on this like this by myself, right? Because I think that way, for example, if it's, I'm a 5'10" guard and I want to work on scoring at the rim, if I just go into my driver and do straight layups, you're never going to make a layup at the next level just straight at the rim. Everything is going to be outside of the body, because you're always going to have someone hitting you, or you're always going to be smaller. There's always going to be someone coming for help. So if you can start thinking a little bit deeper and creatively like that, I think that can help you improve your skills for the next level. And you got to be self-motivated. You really have to be self-motivated, and you have to want it, because there's a lot of players that want it. There's a lot of athletes that are working super, super, super hard that could be more talented than you, but they might not be as tough as you are mentally, right? Or they might quit a little bit earlier. So you have to build that grit and that toughness to compete at the highest level when it really matters. And that comes from just training over and over and over again, and pushing yourself, and really just trying to be the best you can be and maximize who you are as an athlete.
That's great advice. Absolutely great advice. So we have only 10 minutes left, so I'll start bringing in a few questions from our viewers on Virtual JCC, Facebook, and YouTube. The first one applies to both soccer and basketball. Has technology enabled you to recruit foreign-born players whom you can't see in person?
Yeah, there's a lot of scouting services out there where they're scouting all over the world. And university coaches, we get emails all the time. Hey, there's a player from the Philippines. There's a player from Croatia. There's a player from Cincinnati, um, where they're allowing us access to players around the world, and the profiles are made where you get a pretty in-depth look at the student athlete. Um, and so then once that's there, it's as simple as making a connection, and then now getting on a Zoom call or getting on a WhatsApp call, and now starting the recruiting process and starting to get to know the individual and seeing if you can watch some games live as opposed to just a highlight reel, because a lot of schools can't fly from Toronto to somewhere overseas just for a recruiting trip.
Yeah, the same thing in soccer.
Yeah, so same thing in soccer. Soccer is obviously it's a world game, and we get emails. I get emails. I literally think almost every single country in the world throughout the whole year. I can just give you one example. We just recruited a goalkeeper he played in Hamburg in Germany, Hamburg is one of the best academies in Germany, probably one of the top in Europe. He played there, and then he dropped one level lower just to get more playing time. He wasn't getting playing time, but we got someone contacted me, recruiting company. Somebody I knew the person, we saw highlight tapes. Then we saw multiple full games. And having worked in Germany, I know the level that he's coming from. So we have not seen him live, but again, we've seen multiple games. And yeah, we recruit from all around, like I said, all around the world. Germany is one example. We just recruited a player who's coming from Hong Kong, kind of the same idea. One of our top players who's now playing in the Canadian Premier League, he was OUA and All-Canadian. He came from Belgium. So we recruit players from all around the world. And when players get in contact, we'll do our research and then we go from there.
Awesome. And John, I know this is these scouting services and these technologies a bit newer, but even back in your day, I'm sure technology played a big role in recruiting people.
Well, we've always had people from all over the world. We had a guy from Cameroon who, when he first contacted me, 6'8", 215 pounds. He was actually a soccer goalie in Cameroon. And we communicated, and he came over, but he didn't speak any English. So we sent him to the University of Montreal for a year, and he lived in Montreal. He transferred to Concordia the year after that and played with us for 3 years, got his degree, and went on to a professional career in Europe, in France and Belgium. And he also had NBA interest from Philadelphia and New Jersey. So he became an All-Canadian in his third year, and when he left, he was 6'9", 245. So, you work with people like that and help them develop. And but most importantly, what I'm really proud of is him and his brother came. His brother came after him. They both went on. And his brother got an MBA from Wharton, University of Pennsylvania. And he got an MBA got a master's when he was playing in France, and then an MBA at the Soule School of Business in Belgium, which is one of the top schools in Europe. And they're both very successful, productive members of society. And to me, that's what it's all about in the end.
That's awesome. So now I'll get to Erica's question finally. Erica, I'm sorry, you've been waiting a long time. So coaches, what are your thoughts on leading online training while coaching your team? So I assume she means in this era of COVID-19, how you have to do more digital training, Zoom sessions with them.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of this time trying to develop their mental training. So we've been picking every week. We'll pick a very specific topic for our guards or post players and our wings. For example, if it's passing out of the pick and roll, so for our point guard. So that week we'll go through 2-3 video sessions where we're showing different pick and roll coverages and the different passes that you have to make out of it based on your partner that you're playing with. So we're trying to use a lot of the video time that we usually wouldn't get during the off season right now because everybody's home. So we're doing that, and then our guys 3 times a week are doing online strength and conditioning workouts via Zoom with our strength and conditioning coaches. They're getting super creative with the equipment that they have, but it's been good. The guys look forward to it. There's been a lot of buy-in there. So it's it's important to, it's not the same as when you're on the floor or when you're in the weight room or when you're in the actual classroom or doing video. But I think it's very important that your athletes see that you're still doing whatever you can to help them get better during this time.
Yeah, same with us. We're obviously on the same kind of strength and conditioning with our university. All the teams are kind of on the same. So 3 times a week, they're on Zoom. We do a player I do a player review after the season with all the players. This year, obviously, we have to do it online. We take an hour or sometimes up to even 2 hours with the player just to go over everything from the season in terms of the tactical kind of aspect from what we want to see specifically from their position. So yeah, we do a lot of tactical, a lot of video. We do team calls once every 10 days just to go over both on-field and off-field things that we need to kind of discuss. And then kind of, I mean, it's not ideal right now. It's a unique situation, but the thing is that everyone's in the same situation, which rarely happens. Everyone's on the same kind of level, and now it's once we do come out of this situation or out of the COVID kind of situation, it's going to be who's more prepared to step on the field, on the court, to perform. Like I said, everyone's on the same playing field. It's not ideal, but it's what can you control, and you can control taking care of yourself, both with your nutrition, with your sleep, obviously with your training, with your kind of off-field tactical training. And then, yeah, it's not ideal, but we have to make the best out of it, both as coaches and as players.
Awesome. So I'll get all 3 of you out of here with this last question, and I'll bring this back home. You all have Maccabi Games experience. So please share with us some of your memories, and how did that experience impact you as people and as coaches? Madhav, we'll start with you because we've lost John.
Yeah, there's a lot of memories and a lot of good memories. And I think just the amount of friendships and people that you get to meet and interact with from Canada and from all around the world is truly unique, right? It's essentially the Olympics. So you won't get anything like that anywhere else. So for me, those experiences, I love people. It's why I'm coaching. So just being around all different types of people from all different types of sports, I mean, that was super, super, super fun, and which is why I love it.
Yeah, from my perspective, I grew up in Israel, so I lived there for 5 years, and I still have relatives and family there. So I go back every year. But I just, like I said, I love going to Israel, and the Maccabi Games. I played in the Pan American Maccabi Games in Brazil in 2011, and then the 2013 Games. The first time a men's soccer team won a medal, we won the bronze medal, and it was obviously the medal and the performance kind of puts the icing on the cake. But it was just being in Israel and Jerusalem. That's where we were with the Jewish community from around the world. The teammates from here, a lot of the teammates that I had on that team were either players that I competed with or players that I competed against at the university level, and we were already kind of friends or teammates. But that experience just made us even closer. And I still speak, and when I see the guys, I still speak with them. And it was a special experience, and also, just from a soccer perspective, it gave me experience at the international level, which is very different than just a regular kind of league play, and it's helped me in my coaching career. So both soccer and just the Israel experience, and just was phenomenal. It was my last kind of playing experience. I stopped playing a year after that, and it was amazing. It was a lifelong memory.
That's awesome. And we did lose John, but I'll say on his behalf, he has been to Israel and the Maccabi Games, I believe, at least 5 or 6 times. And I know he's absolutely loved every moment of those games, both the competition and, of course, the camaraderie off the court. So, Ilya, Madhav, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Before everyone leaves, I'd like to remind you of a couple of things. This Thursday evening, we have a special conversation with a professional golfer, Ben Silverman. Join us at 6 p.m. But tomorrow night at 8 p.m., Shai Halevi from the hit Israeli Netflix series Fada will be on virtualjcc.com to discuss his career and musical journey. This exclusive live stream is in partnership with the JCC of Central New Jersey and is sponsored by the Sababa Travel Company. This will not be on social media, so register at virtualjcc.com to see it live. And for me, that's all I've got. But Madhav, Ilya, any final thoughts for us tonight?
No, thanks. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us. For all the young athletes out there, good luck in pursuing whatever you want to pursue, and just work hard and do it with your heart. I think if you do it that way, you'll be super successful in whatever you choose.
Yeah, same. Again, thank you for having us. It's been great. The conversation's been great. And like Madhav said, for all the young athletes listening, just it's free to dream. So just make sure that you have a kind of a dream, aspirations, and then that's kind of the easy part. And then work hard towards accomplishing it, and opportunities will open up.
Well said. Thank you guys so much for your time, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Yeah.